Imagine this. You're driving home after work. The road is quiet. You see flashing red and blue lights appear behind you. Your heart starts beating faster as you pull your vehicle to the side of the road. The police officer approaches your window. You hand over your license and registration. The officer looks inside your vehicle, looks back at you, and asks a question that millions of Americans hear every year. Do you have any weapons? Now, most people immediately think they know the right answer. They think the safest thing to do is explain everything. No, officer, I don't have anything. Well, I do have a legally owned firearm in the car. It's in the glove box. It's unloaded. I have a permit. They start talking because they believe they are helping. But here's the problem. During a police encounter, your words matter. Every sentence you say can change the direction of that conversation. And the biggest mistake many people make is not understanding the difference between being cooperative and giving away information without thinking about the consequences. This video is not about disrespecting police officers. It is not about creating fear. And it is not about avoiding lawful responsibilities. It is about understanding your rights, staying calm, and knowing how to handle a stressful situation where one question can lead to many more. Because the question, do you have any weapons, is not just a random question. It can involve officer safety, your constitutional protections, and the specific laws of the state where you are located. And if you don't understand the situation, you might accidentally turn a simple traffic stop into a much more complicated encounter. Why police ask this question? First, let's understand why officers ask this question. Police officers are trained to think about safety during every interaction. A traffic stop is one of the most unpredictable situations officers face. They do not know who is inside the vehicle. They do not know the person's intentions. They do not know if there is a safety risk. That is why questions about weapons may come up. From the officer's perspective, the question may be connected to safety concerns. But from your perspective as a citizen, it is important to understand that a question from an officer does not automatically mean you must provide unlimited information. The law depends on many factors: where you are, why you were stopped, what the officer knows, what circumstances exist at that moment. This is why giving a quick emotional answer without understanding the situation can create problems. The first mistake people make is believing they have to immediately explain everything. A person gets nervous and starts giving a complete story. I don't have anything illegal. I would never hurt anyone. I have never been in trouble. I only have it because I go shooting on weekends. Notice what happens. The original question was simple, but now the conversation has expanded. More information has entered the encounter. More details, more statements, more opportunities for misunderstanding. A calm person thinks before speaking. A nervous person tries to prove they are innocent. And that is a natural human reaction. When someone with authority asks a serious question, many people feel pressure to convince them. But your goal during a police encounter should not be to win approval. Your goal should be to remain calm, respectful, and aware of your legal rights. The important principle. Remember this. Being respectful and knowing your rights can exist at the same time. You can speak politely. You can follow lawful instructions. You can treat the officer with respect. And you can still understand your constitutional protections. The strongest response is not anger. The strongest response is not arguing. The strongest response is knowledge. Because the people who handle these situations best are usually the ones who prepared before the moment happened. And when an officer looks at you and asks, "Do you have any weapons?" the most important thing is not to panic. It's to understand what the question means, why it is being asked, and how to respond carefully. The difference between a question and a search. One of the biggest things people misunderstand during police encounters is the difference between a question and a legal authority to search. When an officer asks, "Do you have any weapons?" many people immediately feel like they have no choice but to answer every detail. They think, the officer asked, so I have to explain everything. But questions and searches are two different things. A question is a request for information. A search involves looking for something. And under the Fourth Amendment, searches generally require legal justification unless an exception applies. This difference is important because many people accidentally give more information than they intended simply because they feel pressured. They believe that cooperating means answering every question, explaining every detail, and giving permission for everything. But being respectful does not mean you must forget your rights. The important principle. Remember this. Being respectful and knowing your rights can exist at the same time. You can speak politely. You can follow lawful instructions. You can treat the officer with respect. and you can still understand your constitutional protections. The strongest response is not anger. The strongest response is not arguing. The strongest response is knowledge. Because the people who handle these situations best are usually the ones who prepared before the moment happened. And when an officer looks at you and asks, "Do you have any weapons?" the most important thing is not to panic. It's to understand what the question means, why it is being asked, and how to respond carefully. The difference between a question and a search. One of the biggest things people misunderstand during police encounters is the difference between a question and a legal authority to search. When an officer asks, "Do you have any weapons?" many people immediately feel like they have no choice but to answer every detail. They think, the officer asked, so I have to explain everything. But questions and searches are two different things. A question is a request for information. A search involves looking for something. And under the Fourth Amendment, searches generally require legal justification unless an exception applies. This difference is important because many people accidentally give more information than they intended simply because they feel pressured. They believe that cooperating means answering every question, explaining every detail, and giving permission for everything. But being respectful does not mean you must forget your rights. The officer safety issue. Now let's talk about something important. Police officers do have legitimate safety concerns. During certain encounters, officers may have authority to take reasonable steps to protect themselves if they have specific facts that create a safety concern. The Supreme Court case, Terry v. Ohio, established that officers may conduct a limited pat-down for weapons when they have reasonable suspicion that a person is armed and dangerous. But a key point is this: a safety concern is based on circumstances and facts. It is not simply because someone chooses to remain calm or chooses not to answer every question. Many people make the mistake of thinking, if I don't answer, the officer will automatically think I am hiding something. That fear causes people to say things they never planned to say. The pressure of the question. Think about how this question feels when you hear it from someone in authority. Do you have any weapons? For many people, the immediate reaction is anxiety. Their mind starts racing. What if I answer wrong? What if they misunderstand me? What if they think I'm suspicious? That emotional pressure is powerful. And under pressure, people often start talking too much. They don't just answer the question. They start telling a story. No, officer, I don't have anything. I mean, I have a firearm, but it's legal. I have a permit. It's registered. I keep it locked up. I was just coming back from the range. Now the conversation has moved far beyond the original question. The person may believe they're making things easier, but they have introduced multiple new details into the encounter. The power of staying calm. The best way to handle a stressful situation is not by becoming aggressive. It is not by arguing. It is by staying controlled. Your tone matters. Your body language matters. Your words matter. A calm person who understands their rights is usually in a much stronger position than someone who is nervous and trying desperately to explain themselves. Remember, a police encounter is not a competition. You are not trying to defeat the officer. The officer is doing a job. You are protecting your rights while remaining respectful. Those two things can happen at the same time. The common mistake with firearms. One of the most important mistakes people make involves immediately volunteering information about firearms without understanding their local laws and circumstances. Firearm laws in the United States vary significantly from state to state. Rules about carrying, transporting, storage, and disclosure requirements can be different depending on where you are. That means a person should understand the laws that apply in their own location. The safest approach is not to panic. Do not make sudden movements. Do not reach toward areas where a weapon may be located. And always follow lawful instructions from the officer. Because during a police encounter, safety comes first. Understanding your rights helps you make better decisions. And the more prepared you are before the moment happens, the easier it becomes to stay calm when that question comes. Do you have any weapons? The biggest misunderstanding about silence. One of the biggest fears people have during a police encounter is this: if I don't answer, won't the officer think I'm guilty? This is one of the reasons many people start talking before they have even thought about what they are saying. They believe silence creates suspicion. They believe they must immediately prove they are a good person. But your rights are not based on whether someone approves of your decision to use them. The Constitution protects people during stressful situations, precisely because pressure can influence decisions. A person who is nervous, confused, or intimidated may say things they never would have said in a normal conversation. And once those words are spoken, they cannot simply be taken back. The difference between being polite and oversharing. Many people confuse being polite with giving a complete explanation. They think respect means answering every question. But there is a difference. Being polite means staying calm, speaking respectfully, avoiding unnecessary conflict, following lawful instructions. Oversharing means giving extra details that were never asked, trying to convince someone you are innocent, answering questions you are not prepared to answer, creating a longer conversation than necessary. For example, an officer may ask, "Do you have any weapons?" A person may respond, "No, I don't have any weapons. I don't believe in carrying anything. I always follow the law. I have never even been arrested. I was just going home from work." The person believes they are helping. But notice something. The answer has become much bigger than the original question. They have volunteered information about their background, their beliefs, and their situation. This is why many legal professionals encourage people to think before speaking during stressful encounters. The importance of not making sudden movements. Another critical issue during a weapon-related question is movement. If an officer asks about weapons, the situation can become more sensitive because officers are thinking about safety. That means your actions matter. A person may think, "I'll just show the officer where it is." But reaching into a glove compartment, center console, bag, or another area without clear direction can create unnecessary risk. Even if your intention is completely innocent, a sudden movement toward a place where a weapon could be located may be misunderstood. The safest approach is simple. Stay still. Keep your hands visible. Communicate clearly. Wait for instructions. During a police encounter, avoiding sudden actions can help prevent confusion. The myth, "I have nothing to hide." Another common mistake happens when people hear, "If you don't have anything to hide, why worry?" This argument sounds convincing, but it misunderstands the purpose of constitutional rights. Rights are not only for people accused of crimes. Privacy is not only for people who have something illegal. Everyone has personal information. Everyone has private belongings. Everyone has things they may not want searched without proper legal authority. The Fourth Amendment was created because the government's power to search people and property must have limits. Understanding those limits does not mean someone is suspicious. It means someone understands the importance of the law. The right mindset. The best mindset during any police encounter is this: do not panic. Do not become argumentative. Do not try to prove your innocence through a rushed explanation. Instead, remain calm and respectful. Understand that every situation is different. The law depends on the specific facts, the location, and the circumstances surrounding the encounter. A person who knows their rights is not someone looking for trouble. A person who knows their rights is someone prepared for a moment when emotions are high and decisions matter. Because when an officer asks, "Do you have any weapons?" the most important thing you can have with you is not just what is in your vehicle. It is knowledge of your rights. The question that can change the entire encounter. There is a reason this question deserves attention. Do you have any weapons? It sounds simple. It sounds like a routine question, but the answer can affect what happens next. The moment you respond, the conversation may move in a completely different direction. Maybe the officer asks more questions. Maybe the officer asks where the weapon is located. Maybe the officer asks whether it is loaded. Maybe the officer asks who owns it. Maybe the officer asks if you have a permit. Suddenly, what started as one question becomes a much longer conversation. And many people don't realize that they are no longer just answering a question. They are now providing information that may influence the officer's next actions. The danger of trying to explain too much. One of the most common mistakes people make is trying to control the situation by explaining everything. They think, "If I just tell the officer the whole story, they will understand." This is a natural human reaction. When someone misunderstands us, we want to correct them. When someone questions us, we want to defend ourselves. But police encounters are different from ordinary conversations. The officer is not a friend trying to understand your weekend plans. The officer is gathering information during an official encounter. That doesn't mean every officer has bad intentions. It simply means you should understand the situation you are in. Your goal should be to communicate carefully, not to accidentally create confusion through unnecessary details. The quick question technique. Sometimes questions are presented as if they are meaningless. The officer may say, "Just a quick question. This will only take a second. I'm just trying to make sure everyone is safe." These phrases can make people lower their guard. Again, this does not mean every officer asking these questions is trying to trick someone. Safety questions can be legitimate, but as a citizen, you should still understand that even casual questions can have legal importance. A conversation that feels informal can still be part of an official investigation. That is why preparation matters. What you should never do. If an officer asks about weapons, there are certain mistakes people should avoid. First, do not make sudden movements. If there is a firearm or any object that could be misunderstood as a weapon, reaching suddenly can create a dangerous situation. Second, do not argue emotionally. Statements like, "Why are you asking me that? You have no right to question me," can increase tension and make communication harder. Third, do not volunteer unnecessary information just because you feel pressured. A calm response is usually better than a rushed explanation. Your rights and your responsibility. Understanding your rights also comes with responsibility. A constitutional right does not mean ignoring safety instructions. It does not mean resisting lawful actions. It does not mean turning a simple interaction into a confrontation. The strongest approach is balance. Respect the officer. Stay calm. Keep your hands visible. Follow lawful commands. And understand where your rights apply. Many people think protecting their rights requires being aggressive. It does not. Some of the most effective people in stressful situations are the calmest people. They don't raise their voice. They don't create drama. They simply understand the situation and make careful decisions. The lesson to remember: when an officer asks, "Do you have any weapons?" Don't let fear take control. Don't immediately start explaining your entire life. Don't make decisions based only on wanting to appear helpful. Take a moment. Stay composed. Understand that your words and actions matter. Because during a police encounter, the person who stays calm and informed is usually the person who handles the situation the best. The moment people lose control of the conversation. One of the most important things to understand about police encounters is this: the person who controls their emotions usually controls the situation better. Not because they have more power, not because they can avoid the law, but because they are able to think clearly when pressure is high. When an officer asks, "Do you have any weapons?" many people immediately feel like they are being accused of something. Their mind starts creating scenarios. Why did they ask me that? Do they think I'm dangerous? Am I already in trouble? And that fear can cause people to react instead of respond. They start talking faster. They start explaining more. They start trying to prove something that was never asked. This is where many mistakes happen. The importance of your words. During any police interaction, your words matter. A statement that feels harmless in the moment may later be viewed differently, depending on the circumstances. For example, someone might say, "I only have a gun because I go to the range sometimes." They may think they are simply giving an explanation. But now they have introduced a new topic. The officer may ask, "Where is it? Is it loaded? Who does it belong to? Do you have identification for it?" Again, these questions may be completely connected to safety concerns or local laws. The point is not that questions are automatically wrong. The point is that people should understand how quickly one answer can expand an encounter. Don't confuse nervousness with guilt. Another important lesson: being nervous during a police encounter does not mean someone has done something wrong. Millions of innocent people become nervous when interacting with law enforcement. The flashing lights, the uniform, the authority of the situation. All of these things naturally create stress. A person may have done nothing wrong and still feel anxious. That is why making decisions based only on fear is dangerous. Your nervous system wants the moment to end quickly. But the fastest answer is not always the smartest answer. Taking a moment to think can prevent unnecessary problems. The role of a lawyer. This is why lawyers often tell people, understand your rights before you need them. A lawyer's job is not to help someone get away with something. A lawyer's job is to make sure the legal process is fair and that a person's rights are protected. The average person does not deal with police encounters every day. But lawyers study these situations. They understand that stress, pressure, and confusion can cause people to make statements they later regret. That is why knowing when to speak and when to pause is an important skill. The simple approach that helps. When facing a stressful question, the goal should be simple. Stay calm. Stay respectful. Avoid unnecessary movements. Do not argue. Do not panic. Do not feel forced to fill every moment of silence. Many people think silence is uncomfortable. They think they must keep talking. But sometimes, saying less allows you to avoid creating confusion. A respectful person can still be careful with their words. A cooperative person can still understand their legal protections. These ideas are not opposites. The final warning before the last lesson. Remember, every police encounter is different. The laws can vary depending on the state. The circumstances matter. The details matter. There is no single sentence that automatically solves every situation. But there is one principle that applies almost everywhere. Do not let fear make decisions for you. When an officer asks, Do you have any weapons? Take the moment seriously. Stay calm. Think clearly. And understand that your actions and words can shape what happens next. Because the best protection you have during any encounter is preparation, before the encounter ever begins. The most important lesson to remember. After everything we've discussed, there is one message that matters more than anything else. A stressful moment is not the time to learn your rights. The time to understand your rights is before the flashing lights appear. Before an officer approaches your window. Before a question puts you under pressure. Because when that moment happens, emotions take over. Your heart beats faster. Your mind starts searching for the quickest way to make the situation end. And that is when people often make decisions they would not make if they were calm. The question, do you have any weapons? May sound simple, but the way you respond can shape the entire conversation that follows. The balance between rights and respect. A common misunderstanding is that knowing your rights means being difficult with police. That is not true. You can respect law enforcement and still understand your constitutional protections. You can speak calmly. You can be polite. You can cooperate with lawful instructions. And you can still be thoughtful about what information you provide. Rights and respect are not enemies. In fact, the best way to handle a police encounter is usually a combination of both. Respectful communication, calm behavior, and awareness of your legal protections. What to remember if you hear this question. If an officer asks, do you have any weapons? Remember these important points. First, do not panic. The question alone does not mean you are guilty of anything. Second, do not make sudden movements. If there is any item in your vehicle that could be considered a weapon, unexpected movement can create confusion. Third, do not rush into a long explanation because you feel pressure. Many people start talking because they want to prove they are trustworthy. But a rushed explanation can sometimes create more questions than answers. Fourth, understand that firearm laws are different across the United States. Rules regarding possession, carrying, transportation, and disclosure can vary depending on your state and situation. Always know the laws where you live. The biggest mistake people make. The biggest mistake is believing, if I explain everything, everything will be fine. Sometimes people think the best way to protect themselves is to tell their entire story immediately. But during official encounters, information matters. Details matter. Timing matters. This is why many legal professionals encourage people to slow down and make thoughtful decisions. Instead of reacting emotionally, a calm person is able to think. A calm person is able to communicate clearly. A calm person is less likely to create unnecessary problems. Final message. Your rights are not something you remember only when things go wrong. Your rights are something you understand before you ever need them. Because the person who knows their rights is not looking for conflict. They are simply prepared. So if you ever find yourself sitting in your vehicle, seeing those flashing lights behind you, and hearing an officer ask, do you have any weapons? Remember, stay calm, keep your movements clear, be respectful, understand the law, and never let fear make decisions for you. Because in a stressful situation, knowledge is your strongest protection. This is what Your Rights USA is all about. Helping everyday people understand the law, stay informed, and make smarter decisions when it matters most. Know your rights. Stay calm, stay prepared,